Now, let's turn to this. Home Affairs office in 5 provinces have been raided of allegations that immigration systems were bypassed. It forms part of an ongoing probe by the Special Investigating Unit and the Hawks. Home Affairs Minister Dr. Motsoaledi joins us now for more on that. Minister, good to have you, and thank you very much for coming on. I'm sure these raids are not happening in isolation. They are part, I suppose, of the bigger probe that was done by DG Lubisi at the time and what it found. And so you would not have been surprised by the SIU's operation on Friday.
Not at all, Tao. How can I be surprised by an operation that was instigated by us? Remember that, Tao, if you understand the background to this issue. I instituted, as a Minister of Home Affairs, the Dr. Lubisi report to investigate all visas and permits that were issued in the Department of Home Affairs from the year 2004, that being the year in which the Immigration Act came into effect. But then they told me that it will take much longer if they start in 2004 because things were done manually. They want to start in 2014, at which time things were automated. And they went on from 2014. They produced results. You are aware now, it's a matter of record that the results went to Parliament and we looked at them. We set a multidisciplinary team to deep digger. But when we saw some of the findings, we realized that only SIU can deal with them. And that's why we went to the president, asked him to sign a proclamation to allow SIU to probe all these things. That is the first part. But the second part, in as far as the reception centers, refugee reception centers are concerned, there is a whistleblower who I met and listened to him very carefully. And I concluded after that meeting that I want the head of SIU to listen to this person, this whistleblower. And the head of SIU did not hesitate. He listened. After that, he said no. He also agrees that this is not a matter that can be left any longer. We need to start with it, meaning all the other things that they signed for on the proclamation might have to wait because this one is urgent. And that's why they immediately threw affidavits, rushed to court to ask for a warrant of search and seizure, which they got. And on Friday, they went to search the premises and seized some of the things that they were needing in order to conclude the investigation.
Now, some of the asylum seekers who were asked to leave the Desmond Tutu Center, for example, before the SIU raided, what is the situation? Because some of them would have said they are writing exams and they were looking to get their documents in order. Others are saying they've been coming there for 2-3 months, wanting to be legal, and now they're being chased away. They're not quite sure what is going to be the end result for them, this having conducted this raid.
Nobody was chased, but the SIU had to do its work. All that they were asked is to wait and for the SIU to complete the work and then come back. They were not being chased away. The nature of the search and seizure was such that they did not need people inside that building. Only those who were in offices, especially those who were persons of interest, as identified by the by the information given by the whistleblower. So nobody was chased away.
So you are saying, as you were conducting those operations then on Friday, there are some persons of interest who would have also been there in the queues already, who would have been doing dealings with the officials?
No, the persons of interest that were identified were officials who are working at the Refugee Reception Center. And when the operation started, SIU officials were asked to rush to the offices of the persons of interest to make sure that nobody escapes and nobody leaves the building with or the office with anything. Remember, they were looking for papers, they were looking for electronic equipment like laptops, iPads, cell phones, etc. And so they wanted to make sure that for those people who are people of interest, none of them can escape or throw away any of those gadgets that they were looking for.
They're saying in some reports you're investigating over 120 Home Affairs employees accused of fraudulent issuing of documents. Is that the number?
No. I don't have the figures yet. Remember, apart from the SIU process, which on Friday, the SIU operation, anti-corruption unit investigates every day continuously. Remember, Thabo, the Department of Home Affairs, because of its nature, is the only government department that has got a whole branch that is called counter-corruption. That is, when we say a whole branch, we mean a unit that is headed by the DDG. As you know, in government, the Director General DG is the highest officer in the department, followed by DDG, and then followed by a Chief Director. Now, many government departments will have a Chief Director or even a Director heading a risk management unit. But in Home Affairs, we have gone far beyond that. We are at the level of a DDG who's heading a unit dealing every day with counter-corruption. And so I would know the number of people that are investigated at any one time.
The counter-corruption effort, when you look at the system and what this certainly would mean, one of the questions is what is going to happen with those documents that would have been issued through fraudulent transactions?
That's exactly why we needed the SIU. You might realize that the SIU is a government structure that can go straight to a tribunal that rules like a court of law, where a lot of things that were acquired criminally can be retrieved. You'll remember that there are some monies which have been retrieved from proceeds of crime. We want them to do the same thing. On Friday, I was interviewed by the media. They asked me what is going to be the way forward. I said the way forward is, one, we expect the SIU to show us which official in Home Affairs must be fired. Two, which officials must be handed over to the Hawks or the police, get arrested and be prosecuted criminally. Number three, which official has acquired property as a result of this crime? That means proceeds of crime, and how do we get them back to the state? Number four, which foreign national holds a fraudulently acquired document? How do we get that document back? And how do we make sure that the proceeds of crime that they might have acquired from that document are retrieved? So it's a whole lot of things which we are expecting to happen.
So there are some who are looking at your operations on Friday and they've been applauding you because they are thinking, now that you are there and the SIU is there, the Hawks conducting the search and seizures, this, for example, is going to unlock the process of issuing of their documents. They say they've been back and forth, others for years, and they say this is an operation that is certainly going to unlock that backlog and those bottlenecks and fast-track the process, which was supposed to be free anyway to start with, but because of the officials' corruption, they've been paying others 5,000-7,000, even more.
Thabo, I've made this statement, and I'm surprised that people in the media don't seem to be understanding. Bribery is bribery. It doesn't matter the circumstances. They seem to be thinking that if government officials do wrong things, then bribery is fair game, that if I'm a client, then I can bribe my way through. That is a criminal offense. You shouldn't bribe for a service that is otherwise free, or that otherwise you pay for through normal channels. You shouldn't be doing that. So obviously, when there is corruption and people want to be bribed, of course it's true. They won't do the work in a way that needs to be done because they want to be bribed first. So it's true that when you claim down on bribery, on bribes, we are also going to unlock service delivery. That one is true, not only for Home Affairs, but for all the government services.
And so you are saying it still will have people who are in the queue, for example, who are waiting for documents, especially if it does turn out that those individuals would have been involved with those officials in fraudulent activity. So if you were waiting for 7 years, you'll still wait. It doesn't mean that now, because there's an investigation on the official, that matter that you were dealing with is going to be set aside and your documents are going to be released.
Thabo, let me make this clear. The backlog we are talking about on the issue of refugees and asylum seekers. It's not the backlog of first instance. What's happening is that when you go to a refugee reception center to claim your refugee status, you are seen by a person called an RSDO, Refugee Status Determination Officer, who will determine, using the United Nations Convention of 1951, the United Nations Protocol of 1967, the Organization of African Unity Convention of 1969, the Refugee Act of South Africa passed in 1998, PAJA, and the Constitution of the Republic. All those documents are considered when they want to ascertain your asylum status. Now, most of these people are rejected because they don't qualify. I've said this many times, and people thought we are just being rough, or sometimes they even claim that we are xenophobic, etc. That we said many of the people who come here are simply economic migrants, but they go there, claim asylum in terms of these conventions I've spoken about. All those conventions I'm referring to, including domestic law and the Constitution, they don't say anything about economic migration. They are talking about people who are running away from their countries because of persecution, because of war, because of natural disasters, etc. Quite a large number of them are not found to be falling within those categories, and they are rejected. Then they appeal. They start appealing. And unfortunately, as I said, even in the white paper, the appeal process in South Africa is unending. We call it the blue sky approach. The blue sky never ends. And we found that that process never ends. And that is the one that is leading to backlog, where people wait for those number of years. You may remember, Thabo, the people who were holed up in the Central Methodist Church in Cape Town. Do you remember that?
Yes.
They were from DRC, right? 3 of them who were ringleaders were deported after 13 years. All those 3 people, Aline Pakuru, Papi Sukami, and Jean-Pierre Baluz, all of them were rejected long ago, but they were appealing. And they took 13 years, them sitting in South Africa, appealing and appealing and appealing, until a magistrate eventually agreed that they don't deserve any refugee status, we must deport them. And we deported them. And when they arrived in the DRC, Papi Sakumi even posted a tweet internationally to tell us that he has formed a political party. Whereas for the whole 13 years, he was claiming asylum and saying, I ran away from DRC. So some of the people, it does not mean when you go to our refugee reception centers, then you qualify for any document. It looks like in the media, they believe it's automatic. If we are very efficient, then everybody ought to come up with any document. Yeah. No, it depends whether you deserve it or not.
Let's talk about this because we are, of course, 10 days away from elections, and part of the work that, of course, Home Affairs is doing is the work of amending the Electoral Code. It's a process that the courts would have said that you need to do, set up a panel, and you started the process. At some point, you were reporting to Parliament. You could have missed the deadline by a couple of months because of the work that was done. Now, a panel has been appointed, and there are some who are questioning how you came to that panel from the 20 or 24 that you would have had, and some undertakings of women representation that you would want there, and the commissioners who've worked with the IEC before being excluded from that list. But it seems all that has fallen away with the people that you've now selected.
Thabo, it's not the courts that said we must appoint the panel. It's not the court, it's ourselves. When we did the consequential amendment to the Electoral Act, in order to do what the Constitutional Court has said, allow independence to come in, there were lots of requests that we must change the electoral system to be constituency-based. And we told them there's no time. We never rejected this, contrary to popular belief in the media that we are rejecting constituencies. We never rejected them. We simply said within the 24 months, it's not possible to divide the country into 200 constituencies and demarcate them and let there be peace. Thabo, you are aware how areas like Vuwani Bend, bent down. Just for local government demarcation, you remember that.
Yes, yes.
How political parties were formed because of demarcation. We just said the process of demarcation took much longer. Instead of rushing into it, we will choose a panel of people with particular characteristics who will investigate, not for these elections that are coming now, no, for the elections that are coming in 2029, who will look all over the world, look into literature, investigate, and write a recommendation to Parliament and say, we think the electoral system in South Africa must look like this and that. And the Parliament itself, in its wisdom, which will be a Parliament, hopefully, or depending on how you think about it, which will be a Parliament maybe with independence. We don't know whether they'll go in or not, but the independents are on the ballot. We believe some will come in. Then it will be a parliament, a full-fledged parliament with independents and members of political parties who will look in that report and adopt a new electoral system for South Africa. That's basically what the panel is all about. It's not the court that said you must come with the panel. And yes, we did miss the time that was in the act because of several factors. But when we eventually took it to the portfolio committee, they rejected last year, I think it's last year in November, they rejected the names. The names that were there, they didn't reject them. They said the scope was too limited because we were taking from the people who have applied. And very, very few women had applied, for instance, and they were saying, no, man, we cannot go on. Please expand it. Let there be other applications. And unfortunately, only 7 more people came in. When we presented for the first time, it was 25 people, and only, I think, 2 of them were women. And we re-advertised again, only 7 more people came in. And then the number was 32, from which we had to choose 9. And that's what we have done. In terms of the act, I'm supposed to choose in consultation with the IEC, and we did so. We consulted the IEC and IEC. We agreed on the 9 names, and then I presented the names to the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs. They agreed and then sent to Parliament. And I'm not going to lie here and say the agreement was 100%. There will be people who object and who don't support it. Like any other act or any action that Parliament undertakes, it does not necessarily mean that you get 100% support.
Minister, appreciate your time. Let's leave it there for tonight. Thank you very much for coming on. That's Dr. Motsoaledi, the Minister at Home Affairs.